In the year 2197, Earth was no longer the blue and green planet it once was. Its skies were thick with dust. The ground, once full of life, was now poisoned. Oceans had retreated, forests had vanished, and the air was only breathable in protected zones. Most of humanity had moved into giant floating cities, suspended above the toxic surface. These cities floated like islands in the sky, powered by solar energy and protected by weather shields. Technology had advanced, but Earth had paid a heavy price. Climate collapse, wars over resources, and centuries of pollution had pushed the planet to the edge. Humans survived, but barely. Artificial intelligence now managed everything: air systems, water recycling, and even the crops grown in controlled environments. People lived in towers that stretched above the clouds, far from the ruined ground below. But even here, hope lived. Kean Reyes stood on a landing pad overlooking the Earth's surface. He was 30 years old, calm by nature, and focused in thought. His eyes scanned the land below through a clear observation dome. He wore a slim gray work suit, the kind used by terraforming specialists like him. His job was not simple. He was trying to bring life back to a planet that had nearly died. Unlike others who gave up, Kean believed Earth could heal. He believed in patience, science, and second chances. He walked down the narrow stairs into his research station, one of the few still working on the planet's surface. It was small, built into the side of an old canyon, shielded from storms. The air inside was pure, filtered through layers of biocleaners. Green lights blinked on the walls. Machines hummed around him. In the center of the lab was a sealed dome, no bigger than a garden shed. Inside it, Kean's latest test had been running for 2 years. It was a patch of real soil, not synthetic, not artificial. Real Earth soil, cleaned and treated over hundreds of days. He had added purified water, controlled temperature, and planted seeds from Earth's ancient gene banks. Today, something was different. Kean stepped into the dome and knelt near the soil. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached down. A small sprout had broken through the surface. It wasn't a lab-grown imitation. It was real. A true plant, alive, green, and breathing. His breath caught in his chest. For a moment, the machines around him faded into silence. All he saw was that single leaf reaching toward the light. It was just a sprout, but it meant something big. Earth was not dead. Life was still possible. He ran diagnostics. The soil was stable. The air mixture was perfect. The root system had taken hold. Kean couldn't believe it. After decades of failed tests, dead zones, and false hope, this was real. He opened his communicator and recorded a message for the Earth Restoration Council. This is Kean Reyes. Project Eden 3 has produced live growth. Repeat, we have a successful sprout. The soil is holding. Full report to follow. He ended the recording and sat back, staring at the tiny plant. His mind was full of thoughts, not all of them joyful. If Earth could heal, who else would notice? The Zenthari would. The Zenthari Alliance had banished Earth nearly 100 years ago. They watched Earth's downfall from the stars and decided it wasn't worth saving. Earth was cut off, no trade, no help, no contact. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity. But Kean knew they were still watching. And if they saw this, if they knew Earth had found a way to restore life, they might come back. And not with kind hands. Still, the spark had been lit. A leaf had grown from the ashes. Kean stood in silence and whispered, "Welcome back." 3 days had passed since Kean Reyes had discovered the sprout. The tiny green leaf, now a little taller and wider, had become the most important piece of life on the planet. Every day, Kean checked its roots, air, and moisture. The readings remained stable. The soil held strong. The sprout had even grown a second leaf. News of the discovery spread quickly. The Earth Restoration Council sent out a quiet but urgent message to scientists, engineers, and leaders in the floating cities. Some celebrated. Others doubted. But one thing was clear: something had changed. For the first time in over a century, Earth had produced real, self-sustaining life from natural soil. Then, something unexpected happened. It was early morning. The sky above Kean's station was cloudy, as usual. He was reviewing growth data when a sharp, high-pitched tone echoed from the station's long-range scanner. The sound wasn't part of any Earth signal. It was foreign, cold, digital, and exact. Kean dropped what he was doing and rushed to the control room. The scanner screen glowed bright blue. Numbers and symbols scrolled across the monitor. The transmission was encrypted in a code Earth hadn't seen in years. His eyes widened. Zenthari protocol. He began decoding the signal. It took the AI system only a few minutes to break it down. A clear message appeared on the screen. To the people of Earth. This is the Zinthri Alliance. We request dialogue. High Commander Voker then will initiate contact within 48 hours. Prepare. Kian leaned back in his chair, stunned. The Zinthri, the same aliens who had exiled Earth, who called humans reckless and unworthy, were reaching out again. But why now? He stared at the message, reading it over and over. It felt like a trap. Or worse, a demand. The last time Earth had contact with the Zinthri, it ended with silence and exile. The galaxy had turned away. Earth had been declared unsalvageable. No more aid, no more trade, no more support. Earth had been left to rot. But now, with just one green sprout, the silence had been broken. Kian reported the message to the council. A virtual meeting was called within hours. The council's chamber appeared on Kian's screen. Dozens of faces from floating cities, scientists, military officers, diplomats, all serious and quiet. Counselor Marin, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, spoke first. Kian Reyes. Confirm this message is real. Kian nodded. Yes. It's Zinthri code. Genuine. They're asking to talk. In 48 hours. The chamber buzzed with voices, some anxious, some angry. What do they want? Why now? Do they know about the sprout? Can we trust them? Kian waited. Then he spoke clearly. We don't know why. But they're not contacting us for nothing. Maybe they saw our data. Maybe they're watching. Or maybe they need something. The council fell silent. Then Marin said, You discovered the growth. You're the closest to the surface. You'll speak with them first. Kian didn't argue. He simply nodded. Later that night, as the stars appeared faintly through the dusty sky, Kian stood outside the dome. He looked up, remembering the first time he had read about the Zinthri as a child. They were described as powerful, cold, and wise. But they had also been judges, quick to decide, quick to abandon. He thought about the tiny sprout, still growing in the soil chamber behind him. What would it mean to aliens who saw Earth as broken? Would they see hope? Or would they try to take it? The next 48 hours passed slowly. The lab remained quiet, but Kian felt the tension grow. He didn't sleep much. He prepared data files, reviewed past alien contact records, and checked the defensive systems, just in case. Finally, on the second evening, it happened. A strange light broke through the sky, like a falling star, but slower, more controlled. A ship entered the atmosphere without sound. Sleek, black, and sharp-edged, it hovered in place above the old canyon where Kian's station stood. The Earth scanners picked up no weapons. No threats. Just a signal. A calm voice echoed in Kian's ear through his comlink. This is High Commander Voker then of the Zinthri Alliance. We request immediate dialogue. We come in peace, under strict observation. Kian took a deep breath. Transmission received. This is Kian Reyes, terraforming specialist of Earth. I am ready to speak. He walked back inside the station, heart steady but mind alert. The aliens had returned. But this time, they were the ones asking. The Zinthri ship did not land. It floated silently above the canyon like a shadow blocking the stars. It was smooth and dark, shaped like a long blade with no windows or visible engines. Kian watched it from his dome's roof deck. It didn't move, didn't speak, didn't show force. It just waited. Inside the station, everything was still. The lights dimmed automatically as the sun dipped below the horizon, but Kian stayed awake. He was alone, surrounded by silence, except for the soft hum of machines and the steady rhythm of his own breath. At exactly midnight, the station's central console lit up with a new signal. The voice returned, deep, smooth, and emotionless. We are ready. Kian stood before the console and pressed a button on the center panel. A projection flickered to life. A tall figure appeared, transparent but clear. His skin was pale gray with a faint metallic sheen. His face was long, eyes narrow, and his expression unreadable. This was High Commander Voker then. He wore a dark uniform with a silver crest on the collar, sharp, polished, and perfectly fitted. Every movement he made was slow and deliberate, as if nothing could rush him. Kian nodded politely. High Commander then. I'm Kian Reyes, terraforming specialist, representing the Earth Restoration Council. Voker stared at him in silence for a moment before responding. We are aware of your name and work. You have achieved what your kind failed to do for centuries. Kian kept his voice steady. Earth is healing. Slowly. We haven't forgotten what happened. Why are you here? The alien didn't blink. Our alliance faces a crisis. Several Zinthri worlds are failing. Soil decay, oxygen collapse, water instability. We have reason to believe your recent methods, those used in Project Eden, may help us reverse the damage. So, it was true. They had seen the data. The Zenthari were watching Earth all along. Kian's jaw tightened. You exiled Earth. You abandoned us. Voker's voice remained flat. Earth was declared lost. The decision was logical at the time. Your kind poisoned your own world. And now that we're healing, you come back? Kian asked. We come to propose mutual interest, Voker said. In exchange for your terraforming systems and data, the Zenthari Alliance offers trade, protection, and reintegration. Kian looked at the projection. He didn't see regret. He saw strategy. A calculated move. I see no apology in your words. Voker's expression didn't change. Regret is not a useful function. Correction is. We made a decision. Now we correct it. Kian turned away from the screen for a moment. He needed to breathe. This wasn't just a science exchange. This was history reopening itself. The same species who once left humanity behind now stood at their door, asking for help, but without humility. He faced the projection again. You say you want cooperation. But Earth isn't the same place anymore. We've learned. We've suffered. We've survived without you. Voker tilted his head. We recognize Earth's growth. That is why we are here. Our proposal stands. You may present it to your council. Kian paused. Then he said firmly, we will consider it. But understand this, Earth doesn't answer to the Zenthari anymore. If there is to be peace, it must be between equals. For the first time, something flickered in Voker's eyes. Not emotion, but perhaps surprise. We will return in 2 Earth days for your answer. With that, the signal ended. The ship above the canyon rose higher and moved silently across the sky, disappearing into the clouds. The Earth remained quiet once more. Kian stood alone in the control room, hands at his sides. He wasn't afraid, but his mind raced. The Zenthari had returned, not with weapons, but with need. That made them more dangerous in some ways. Desperate people, or aliens, were never predictable. He sat down at the console and opened a private channel to Counselor Marin. They want the technology, he said simply. And they're not sorry. Marin's tired face appeared. Do we give it to them? Kian looked toward the soil chamber, where the sprout now had 3 healthy leaves, glowing softly under the lights. Not yet, he said. Not until we know they'll treat us with respect. And not until they understand. We are not the same Earth they abandoned. He ended the call and stared out into the darkness beyond the station windows. The enemies had returned. But this time, they were the ones who needed saving. 2 days passed. The Zenthari ship remained out of sight, hidden in orbit or perhaps cloaked behind the clouds. Earth's sky stayed gray. The air stayed still. But everyone knew something had changed. News of the alien return had spread through the floating cities, even though the council tried to contain it. People whispered in crowded sky elevators and quiet homes. Some were excited, hopeful even. Others were angry. Many were afraid. In the Earth Restoration Council's floating headquarters, discussions grew tense. Kian Reyes joined daily briefings by Secure Link. Every expert had a different opinion. Some believed Earth should agree to the deal and share its technology. Others warned it was too risky. The Zenthari were not known for kindness. Kian sat in his station's communication room, listening quietly. When the council finally asked for his thoughts, he spoke simply. They need us, but they don't respect us. If we hand over our data now, we become tools, not partners. Counselor Marin, always calm, nodded slowly. Then what do you suggest? Kian took a breath. We set conditions. They want our help? Fine. But only if they formally recognize Earth as a full member of the Galactic Alliance again. No more exile. No more silence. And they must admit they were wrong to abandon us. The council room fell quiet. An apology? One member asked. A statement of responsibility, Kian said. We don't need their pity, but we need their respect. Otherwise, this isn't peace, it's pressure. The council agreed. The message was prepared and sent. Kian waited. Later that evening, the Zenthari ship returned. This time, it came lower, close enough for Kian to see its smooth surface and glowing lines along the edges. A projection appeared again in his control room. Voker then stood as still as ever, face blank and unreadable. Kian delivered the council's reply. If the Zenthari wish to proceed, Earth requires full restoration of its status in the Alliance. We also request a formal statement accepting responsibility for the exile decision. There was silence. Then Voker replied, We do not accept these terms. Kian didn't flinch. Then we do not share our systems. Voker's eyes narrowed slightly. You would let our planets die over pride? This isn't pride, Kian said. It's memory. You left us to die. We rebuilt ourselves. You want our help. Then you face our truth. Without another word, Volker ended the transmission. The ship rose into the sky and disappeared again. Kian knew it wasn't over. He could feel the tension in the air, like a storm waiting to break. And then it did. The next night, just after midnight, an alarm blared through the station. Not a drill. Not a false reading. Emergency alert from Sky Haven, one of Earth's largest floating cities. A systems failure. A power surge. Parts of the city fell from the sky. Kian opened his comlink. Reports were flooding in. Fire. Damage. Dozens injured. Systems disabled. And no clear reason why. Was it an accident? Or something worse? The council met in emergency session. Most believed it was sabotage, but from where? Some blamed the Zenthari. Others blamed human extremists who didn't want aliens back. Kian sat quietly, his thoughts heavy. Later that night, he reviewed data from his station. Something strange caught his eye, a brief energy spike, just before the Sky Haven disaster. A signal had passed through Earth's orbit. Hidden. Encrypted. He ran it through his AI systems. The result was chilling. It was Zenthari code, but not from Volker's ship. This was different. Older. More aggressive. A rogue signal. Kian's heart pounded. Could it be another Zenthari faction? One that didn't agree with Volker? Maybe some of them didn't want peace. Maybe they wanted Earth destroyed before any alliance could begin. He sent the data to the council. Then he sat in silence, staring at the growing plant in the soil chamber. It had 4 leaves now. Strong. Alive. A symbol of hope. But hope was fragile. And right now, someone was trying to crush it. Kian stood up, filled with quiet resolve. If Earth was to survive this deal, if peace was ever going to happen, he would need to confront Volker face to face. Because someone was lying. And the truth was the only thing that could stop a war. He and Reyes stood alone in his control room, the dim lights reflecting off the glass walls. The soil chamber behind him glowed gently, and the plant inside now had 5 strong, healthy leaves. It had become more than a sprout. It was the proof Earth had long waited for, a sign that healing was truly possible. But outside, peace was falling apart. The attack on Sky Haven had shaken the council. Trust in the Zenthari was crumbling, and fear was rising fast. Accusations flew like sparks in dry grass. Was it the Zenthari testing Earth's defenses? Or humans trying to sabotage the alliance? Or something even worse, an unseen enemy hiding behind both? Kian had no answers. But he had data. He stared at the transmission logs on his screen, the rogue signal he had uncovered. It was Zenthari in origin, but not from Volker's ship. It came from somewhere else. A different pattern. A different code. A different ship. That meant one thing. Not all Zenthari agreed with Volker. And some were acting without his knowledge. Kian didn't wait for permission. He sent a direct message to the Zenthari ship above. Urgent. I need to speak to Commander Volker. Face to face. To his surprise, the reply came quickly. Granted. Landing zone prepared. Come alone. Within the hour, a sleek black shuttle descended from the clouds. Its surface shimmered like glass. It hovered just above the landing pad outside Kian's station. A ramp extended with a soft hiss. Kian stepped onto it without hesitation. Inside, the shuttle was silent. Clean, smooth walls. No seats. No visible controls. Just light and air. Then Volker appeared through a sliding door, standing tall, his hands behind his back. His silver-gray skin glowed faintly in the artificial light. You requested this meeting, Volker said calmly. Yes, Kian answered. There was a signal. It wasn't yours. It was Zenthari, but different. It came just before the Sky Haven attack. Volker's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Kian continued, if your people are divided, we need to know. If there are others working against peace, then this alliance is already broken. For a long moment, Volker said nothing. Then he turned and walked toward a small console. He touched the surface, and a holographic image appeared, Zenthari ships, symbols, data logs. There are factions, he said finally. Not all of my kind agree with returning to Earth. Some believe you should have been left to fade. Some think helping you is a betrayal of our past judgment. Then you're not in control, Kian said bluntly. I am in command, Volker said firmly. But unity is fragile. My authority is challenged by those who fear change. Kian stepped closer. So they attacked Sky Haven? To destroy the talks? It's possible, Volker said. We are investigating. But if the council learns of this, they may withdraw. And if my own people sense weakness, they may remove me from command. Kian stared at him. Then we're both standing on shaking ground. Volker met his gaze. You understand more than I expected. He unfolded his arms. I've spent my life rebuilding a dying world. I've seen how fast something can fall apart, and how hard it is to rebuild trust. There was silence between them. Not hostile, just heavy with truth. Then Volker did something unexpected. He lowered his head slightly. A mistake was made when Earth was exiled, he said. It was a judgment of fear, not logic. You have shown us that life can return from death. We see now that Earth is not lost. Kian's eyes widened. Is that your way of saying sorry? Volker's lip moved, almost a smile, though not quite. It is a Zinthari apology. The best one you will get. Kian exhaled, slowly. I'll take it. The hologram faded. The ship began its slow return to orbit, carrying them back to the place where the final decision would be made. Later that night, the council met one last time. Kian shared everything, his conversation, the admission, the division inside the Zinthari. There were long discussions. Arguments. Fierce. But slowly, the tone began to shift. Trust, once broken, cannot be repaired in a day. But it can begin. And that night, Earth chose to begin. The council agreed to a controlled alliance. Technology would be shared, step by step. Earth would return to the galactic network, not as a weak world begging for help, but as a survivor offering strength. And the Zinthari? They would face their own divisions. Volker would return to his people and defend the peace they had begun. Kian returned to his station before dawn. The sky was clearing, just a little. A soft beam of sunlight passed through the window and touched the soil chamber. The plant inside now had 6 leaves. Still growing. Still reaching. The sun rose over the dusty horizon, casting a soft, golden light across the canyon. The sky, often dull and clouded, held a hint of blue for the first time in years. From the roof of his research station, Kian Reyes watched the light break over the edge of the floating cities above. The air was still, the world quiet, as if Earth itself was holding its breath. Inside, the soil chamber stood in full glow. The plant now had 8 green leaves, strong and healthy. Its stem had thickened, roots deeper than before, anchored into real soil. Kian smiled as he touched the side of the glass. It was no longer a sprout. It was life, real and resilient. The news had spread quickly. Earth and the Zinthari had signed a historic agreement. The council had accepted the terms after long, difficult talks. Volker then had sent a formal message to Earth's global network. In a direct and calm voice, he acknowledged the exile, the failure to help, and the strength Earth had shown. We judged you wrongly, he had said. You have proven your worth not through war or power, but through patience, survival, and growth. Let this be the beginning of a new path together. It was the closest thing to a galactic apology Earth had ever received. In return, Earth agreed to share its terraforming system, the data, the soil process, and the AI models that Kian and his team had spent years developing. But not all at once. Slowly, carefully, side by side, Zinthari engineers would visit Earth. Earth scientists would travel to Zinthari colonies. Trust would be rebuilt one step at a time. Kian had been offered a seat on the newly formed Interplanetary Restoration Board, a team of humans and aliens working together to restore dying worlds. He accepted, but requested time first. There was still work to do on Earth. Later that week, a transport ship descended into the canyon. It was the first Zinthari vessel to land on Earth in over 100 years. Its silver hull reflected the rising sun, and its engines hummed softly as it touched down beside Kian's station. The hatch opened, and 3 figures stepped out, Zinthari scientists, dressed in deep blue robes with silver trim. They walked carefully, slowly, observing the world around them with curiosity and awe. Kian stepped forward to greet them. There were no guards, no weapons, only tools, data pads, and open minds. The lead scientist bowed slightly. We are honored to stand on Earth's soil. Kian nodded. Welcome back. He led them inside, past the control panels, past the data logs, and finally to the soil chamber. The aliens gathered around the plant and stared in silence. One of them reached out, not to touch it, but to simply feel its warmth through the glass. So simple, she whispered. And yet, it could save us all. Kian didn't need to say anything. The plant spoke for itself. Days passed, and more ships arrived. Earth stations began to reopen across the surface. Old wastelands were mapped for healing. The sky started to clear slowly as new air systems were activated. Not everywhere, but in places where green had a chance to return. The people of Earth watched with a mixture of pride and caution. They had suffered. They had been alone, but they had endured. And now, for the first time in 100 years, they were not alone anymore. Kian continued his work, not in isolation but as part of something larger. His plant was no longer the only one. New growths began across the land, controlled, tested, and carefully managed. One afternoon, he walked into the open air, through a narrow path between rocky hills where dry winds used to blow. Now, small patches of green dotted the ground. Tiny sprouts, much like the first, pushing up toward the sun. He crouched down, brushed his hand across a fresh leaf, and smiled. Earth was still wounded, but no longer broken. Above him, a Zenthri ship passed quietly through the sky, not as a threat, but as a partner. And below, in the soil, life was returning.